KayFabe Smark Podcast.
Welcome to the KayFabe Smark Podcast with Eric Todd and Brian Rampa, your smart mark source for news and opinions on the world of professional wrestling.
Hey, what is going on? This is the KayFabe Smark Podcast.
You know, same old. Spent a week down south, southern Missouri, in the middle of the Ozarks. 1 bar of spotty Verizon service down there. So just chilling, drinking beer, kicking back. Come back from Missouri, back to Michigan. My 18-year-old son bought a goddamn motorcycle, Brian. So that's what I came back to.
Son of a bitch. He bought a motorcycle. Well, there you go. He's going to be out. I say he doesn't need a motorcycle, but that's just the dad inside of me talking. But we're not here to talk about parenting. We're here to talk about professional wrestling. And Eric, do we have any news going on?
Yeah, we had some news going on over the week. Not a ton of stories, but the internet wrestling community and the world, as a matter of fact, are just chomping at the bit to talk about Ric Flair. So as soon as you hit that ticker, we can get into the news.
Here we go. This is the news. We are here to bring it to you, my friends. This is the news. Let's see what happened over this 2-week hiatus. Well, 1-week hiatus. What we got going on?
All right, so Ric Flair is catching a ton of heat for actions that were reported on the most recent, I believe it was most recent episode of Dark Side of the Ring, the plane ride from hell. Lots of allegations being spouted about Ric Flair making flight attendants touch his unit and whatnot. And apparently these stories have just blown the hell up, and Ric Flair is just catching heat everywhere he looks. He's got companies that he was doing endorsements for just canceling their obligations. You got fans asking Tony Khan not to hire Ric Flair because of the rumors that Flair was going to go to AEW. You got the New York City Comic-Con. They were advertising Ric Flair to be there in October, and they went ahead and said, we're not having Ric Flair there. So, yeah, this shit has blown the hell up, Brian.
Yeah, I think it's blown up. It's gotten out of control. The actions of Ric Flair have been and always will be reprehensible. You know, he shouldn't have been doing what he was doing, but it did happen. Punishing somebody for what happened, it sounds so weird. I don't know. I mean, if somebody murdered somebody 20 years ago, they're going to go to jail, right? But it's always it's a weird gray area in this situation for me. I feel for the young lady. Wish all this wouldn't have happened. And it's just a real shitty situation for everybody.
Yeah, and just probably the main confusing part about all this is all these allegations of Ric Flair have been out there forever. They've been told as road stories on shoot interviews. They've been animated for WWE TV. Maybe not to the extent of, touching or whatever, or forcing somebody to touch one another. But the stories of Ric Flair and his shenanigans have been out there for a long time, and it took Vice TV. They put it on blast, and no hate to them. They're just reporting the news and putting it out there. But once that came out, all of a sudden, Ric Flair, man, just in a house of fire.
Yeah. It might have been this young lady that this stuff happened to, and this cancel culture that has come back. It's like, it was forgotten about, and it had to be spoken about again on cable TV, on TV, on the internet. It just doesn't, it's just, just bringing up all these old feelings again, and, things start to happen and fall apart. And the bad, it's like a house of cards. Once the one person pulls something, it's like, well, you don't want to be the one Comic-Con or the one advertising group that still works with somebody under such fire, right? So Rick just needs to go disappear for a while and come back. He's Ric Flair at the end of the day.
Right. That's another confusing part of this society. So, you hate to put a negative spin on saying people are a little more sensitive these days than they were back in the day. So they're quick to get their voice out there because there's millions of people to listen to them. But at the same time, we also live in this fast-paced era where people forget about shit like that. Papa John was a good example. He got caught on audio saying the N-word over a meeting. Papa John's stock just tanked. And then 3 days later, it was right back where it needed to be. People forgot about it. Papa John moved on with his life.
Right. Ric Flair can disappear and let this all blow over, and hopefully he's learned from his troubled past, and he keeps his nose clean and keeps his clothes on under his robe.
Right, precisely. And a similar story emerged with former WWE star Rene Dupree from La Resistance. I don't know if you remember them, Brian.
I would say that would be overrated.
He is accusing The Undertaker of orchestrating a bullying incident. Here's a little excerpt from the quote. "They took my $500 shoes and $1,000 suit and ruined it in the shower because I didn't go out drinking at a bar the night before because nobody invited me. That's just materialistic shit. You can replace that. That doesn't bother me. What really bothered me is when in Italy the next night, they took my French flag, my heritage, they shoved it in a toilet and pissed and shit all over it." And apparently, according to Dupree, Undertaker was the one who put that whole thing together. You don't want to go out drinking with us? We poop on your flag.
They took it to another level with the flag thing. But we've heard so many stories of people doing things to people backstage and getting ribs pulled on them over the years. X-Pac taking a dump in Sonny's duffel bag was a famous one. That got him in trouble. X-Pac, or as he was known then as the 1-2-3 Kid, getting his eyebrows shaved off by Mr. Perfect after Perfect got him drunk one night. And the next day was a photo shoot. And there was no money in the company at the time. And currently, if you go find the green card of the Hasbro 1-2-3 Kid in that picture where he's doing his little ninja pose, he has no eyebrows. In all his autograph flats, he has no eyebrows because Kurt shaved him off the night before. Things happen. You're in a fraternity with a bunch of guys. You're getting hazed. You couldn't hang. We move on. I think that's the thing that happened here.
Right. And that's my point exactly. Sexual assault aside, things like shitting on one's flag, yeah, it's pretty messed up. You can't deny that. But all these stories have just been known as ribs, and they've been told time and time again, and it is just part of being in the business. You're one of the guys. You're going to catch a rib every now and again. Owen Hart was absolutely celebrated for his ribs. And, but now it's just I don't understand.
Shawn Michaels shoved the Canadian flag up his nose on TV. Now, mind you, not in a rib. I don't know. Maybe it was a rib. I don't know what he was doing out there. It was live TV. Whether he was sent out there and doing it to work or he was sent out there to do it and sent out there to do his job and he decided to add that to it. Nonetheless, he still did that on TV in front of fans. Now, this other incident happens behind the locker room curtain, right? So, shit happens. I think it's just kind of, and to pull it up 18 years later, man, this is,
Yeah, and we'll get off this subject here in a minute, but that's the thing. It just doesn't translate. Stories that were just funny ribs 20 years ago, there's no way to bring them up in today's society because anyone who's under the age of 30 right now has just been brought up. Anything along those lines is completely wrong, completely bullying, and is completely inappropriate. But 25, 30 years ago, it was just part of the game. Everybody got it. Everybody laughed it off eventually. It was no big deal. but you can't translate stories from 30 years ago that were no big deal into 2021 terms without people getting all messed up and all pissed off about it.
Yeah, it's like I said, wacky times we live in. Wacky times.
All right. And in other news, Brian, how much do you think All Elite Wrestling as a business, as a whole, is worth at this moment?
All Elite Wrestling. I don't. I have no idea. I'm so bad with this.
Well, Dave Meltzer, super reliable source there, revealed AEW is currently valued at $400 million, having spoken to a sports business professor at Stanford. Meltzer said, I had a discussion with a sports business professor at Stanford who has followed the AEW business and put a market value of the product at $400 million right now. So it's been rumored that it was a $25 million investment, that being AEW, but it has been widely reported that Shad Khan, Tony Khan's father, actually invested about $100 million into AEW. But still not too shabby. In 2 years, $100 million investment worth about $400 million right now.
Yeah, you figure they've got, 2 shows. They're running, going to be pushing it up to what they got 3 hours of television they're running. That's a lot of advertisement time they're selling. I think they're moving Rampage up to 2 hours at least for this week. And it may be something that continues on for 2 hours as they go. They got a lot invested in this. Their pay-per-view buys, the merchandising that they've been working with, the new talents they've signed, and who knows what the long-term deal is with Turner and their broadcasting situation there. So, yeah, they probably did it right. They're doing good so far. I mean, their storylines are coming together. We'll talk about more of that as we get into the show.
Yeah, and AEW also have teamed up with the Hart family. The AEW has announced the Owen Hart Cup tournament, Owen Hart action figures, and also Owen Hart being in their new video game. The Owen Hart Foundation joined up with AEW, and their AEW will be honoring Owen Hart in a multitude of ways. And that's kind of big news, Brian, because Martha Hart, Owen's widow, has been widely known as wanting nothing to do with the wrestling business, nothing to do with WWE. And it seems almost like a CM Punk situation where it's initially thought that they want nothing to do with wrestling. Turns out it's pretty much they don't want anything to do with WWE.
They don't want anything to do with sports entertainment.
They're not too sour on professional wrestling, but sports entertainment is a no-go right now.
I have a feeling, this is just my gut from the interviews that I've seen and heard with JR, his Dark Side of the Ring, all of that he did about Owen Hart and everything about JR. I think this is a JR pet project. This is his thing that he's bringing. This is my gut. I know nothing, but it's my gut. This is something JR is bringing to the forefront because he was crushed by Owen. He was crushed that he had to deliver the news. They go to a package. They come back and go, "You're going live in 10. Owen Hart's dead. 3, 2, 1. You're live." And he has to deliver the news. He's the only one that went to represent the WWE. Ended up being the one that represented WWE at the funeral. He gets chased out because, it wasn't JR's fault, but somebody had to take the beating for the WWE, and he was the whipping boy. So I think that he felt bad. Personally, I think this is something that he's bringing and fighting for to make happen, and made happen. So I think it'll be, I guess it's, bring Owen Hart to the forefront of, let people learn about him. They're going to have to go look at him on Peacock and give WWE the money to go watch his work, but, at least people will learn about him again, bring him up, making action figures and merchandise and whatever else happens with it, and the Hart Foundation project, whatever that entails.
Right. It's widely pretty much known that Tony Khan isn't there to, take advantage of wrestlers or, use wrestlers' deaths or, unfortunate circumstances to make a storyline out of or to make a profit. WWE, they've been known to be shady folks. So Martha Hart didn't want anything to do with Owen with WWE because WWE would just turn it around and make money off of it somehow. Tony Khan and AEW seem a lot more genuine, and I think a lot more positivity will come out of them handling Owen Hart as far as his wrestling career right now.
100%. 100%.
And then the last thing I have here isn't really news, but it's just kind of funny coincidence that gave me a chuckle. 2 interviews that came out this week. One with Charles Wright, the former Godfather and Papa Shango, and also CM Punk. Charles Wright mentioned Hulk Hogan one time, saying Hulk Hogan is not the nice, good guy you think he is. I'm paraphrasing there. And then CM Punk, within the same week during his interview, said, well, I think Hulk Hogan's a piece of shit. So I just thought that was funny. Hogan, widely regarded as being the all-American hero. We all loved him growing up as kids. But it's funny to see such a contrast. Some of the professionals in the business. Hulk Hogan, a piece of shit. Breaking news.
Breaking news. This just in. The Hulkster is a turd bucket. All right. Anything else in the news docket this week?
No, we're going to wrap it on news, and we'll hit that ticker and get out of it and see what else we get into.
All right. That was the news. Coming live to you. It's the KayFabe Smark News. Eric on vacation doing his internet research. All right, well, we are here. It is time to play a little game that we like to call
Let's Play Overrated or Underrated with Eric Todd.
Son of a bitch. It's time to play Overrated, Underrated with Eric Todd. Let's square up Eric's screen here so we can see both of our little cartoon comic book faces there. It is time to play Overrated, Underrated, Celebrity Edition. We're going to get into a little bit of celebrities. Overrated or underrated? Dennis Rodman involved with the NWO.
This was a bad time for WCW. They were just trying to cash in on anybody who would walk through the door. Dennis Rodman was just a flop. I know he brought money into the company. I know he brought over some NBA fans, but that, in my eyes, was just embarrassing. So Dennis Rodman, overrated.
See, I would give Dennis Rodman properly rated, but Karl Malone, that would have been overrated. And then they brought in Jay Leno. I mean, they really, shit the bed there. But nonetheless, we shall move on. This isn't overrated, underrated with Brian Rompa. This is overrated, underrated with Eric Todd. So we're going to let you make these decisions. Overrated, underrated, Mike Tyson involved with DX and WrestleMania and punching Shawn Michaels and Stone Cold and the whole 9 that went with that.
I'm going to say, as far as Mike Tyson goes, underrated. Mike Tyson, at the time, WrestleMania 15, the whole world was chomping at the bit to talk about Mike Tyson and him getting involved in DX. And DX was already one of the hottest things on the planet. Stone Cold Steve Austin is one of the hottest things on the planet. And Mike Tyson just ignited that stick of TNT, no pun intended there. and then it just fucking exploded, already bigger than it was. And my favorite part of the WrestleMania 15 Mike Tyson fiasco was the post-event interview where Mike Tyson refers to Stone Cold Steve Austin as Cold Stone Steve Austin.
And that was where
Steve had to correct him.
That was where the inspiration for Cold Stone Creamery came in, and it was born that night. They decided to make ice cream. Overrated, underrated, Mr. T involved with Hulk Hogan, the real piece of shit, as we learned from the news, in WrestleMania 1.
A lot of fans out there weren't around or weren't old enough to remember how big Mr. T was. Mr. T was a worldwide phenomenon. So WrestleMania 1, WWE just getting on its feet in the pay-per-view game there. bringing Mr. T in was absolutely bombastic. So there's that. No matter how much praise you give it, Mr. T in WrestleMania 1 will always be underrated.
There you go, underrated there. This next one is a bit before our time, but we know about the story. Mr. Andy Kaufman and Jerry Lawler. They went and wrote the movie. They involved that with Jim Carrey, The Man on the Moon. Andy Kaufman getting the pile driver, wrestling women, breaking his neck, making the whole thing a work for like 2 years. What do you think? Andy Kaufman, Jerry Lawler, overrated, underrated?
All right. Like you said, it was a little before our time, so I can't properly judge it. But from what I've heard of the incident and the respect for Andy Kaufman for coming in from the outside world and selling more than, I'd say, 99% of the stars sell today, and committing to the character and being a true 100% heel. I didn't live through it, but from what I read about it, all respect to Andy Kaufman, and there's no way that could ever be underrated or overrated. That is definitely underrated. Andy Kaufman getting involved with Jerry Lawler in Memphis.
Jerry Lawler in Memphis. All right, here we go. This is the best one. Comes to you from WCW. Master P and the No Limit Soldiers.
Again, it was just pure ridiculousness coming out of WCW at that time. Master P, the gold tanks, make them say, I went to a concert at the Pontiac Silverdome and had to dodge chairs and baseball bats and whatnot. But no matter how big Master P was, him getting involved in the wrestling business, just it did not feel natural whatsoever. And that whole thing, again, if they made money off it, if they got exposure off of it, it'll always be overrated in my eyes.
There you go. Overrated Master P. That's all I got for you. That's the 5. Overrated, underrated, celebrity edition. It's time to move on and talk AEW and their big Grand Slam Dynamite show. Wasn't it Grand Slam?
It was Grand Slam at the Arthur Ashe Stadium in New York.
Yeah, man. They crushed it. Like, they sold it out, or at least, I can't quote me on that, but they had it filled up. I mean, it was straight.
Yeah. over 20,000 people were packed up in that, boy.
Yeah, they did all right. Now, I don't know if it was on a rumor again, because, I mean, they sold out Chicago on a rumor that CM Punk would show up. They were in New York. You know, they maybe were they expecting something bigger than what they got? I think they got a great show, but were they expecting something else? Did it sell out on a rumor? Did it sell out on a Bray Wyatt rumor?
Yeah, and what I was thinking about when I saw that crowd was this is originally where Bryan Danielson was supposed to debut, and they were afraid that something was going to fall through with New York and COVID, and the event might be without a crowd. So that's why they bumped Bryan Danielson's debut up. But man, this should have been it, Brian. I wish in hindsight's 2020, that they would have stuck to their guns on this one. Could you imagine Bryan Danielson coming out to this crowd?
Yeah, that pop would have been huge. It would have been perfect. It would have been a real to WWE to bring Bryan Danielson in New York live, you know, as his debut. But nonetheless, it did not happen. But they delivered a hell of an opening match.
Right. And I didn't sneak ahead and look at what the card was going to be before I watched the show. So I turned on the show and I heard JR and Excalibur and whatnot talking about this card tonight. And I was completely blown away that this card was stacked as hell. Usually I can look at the upcoming matches and I'm like, well, that's going to stink, or I'll go take a piss during that one, or I'll go make a sandwich during that one. This card was absolutely stacked, and I had to stay in my seat and watch the whole thing.
Yeah, they stacked it from top to bottom. There's no question there. You know, I've challenged AEW because I know they listen. You know, Tony Khan tunes in every week to the KayFabe Smark podcast and saying, can you keep this going? Can you keep this momentum? you get, they were building these shows and having these debuts, and can you keep this momentum going? So far, the answer is yes. He's kept some momentum, especially with this show.
I'm a little worried. It was debut after debut, and people wanting to see these new huge stars talk or wrestle or what have you. They just want to see them, and that was bringing in the ratings. And then they're doing shows like this, which is complete hot shotting. You can't put this show on every week.
No.
So their ratings were dipping for a minute, but this one shot it right back up, mainly because of this card. AEW Grand Slam brought in over 1.2 million viewers this week. But again, got to ride that wave. You can't do this shit every week, boys.
No. I did see some comments from Eric Bischoff on Twitter stating that Vince is his happiest and does his best work when he's in a fight. And after last night's show, be ready for a good show from everybody. So Eric Bischoff is prepping everybody that Vince isn't going to stop and be the sucker in the game. So just because you're going to go sell out Arthur Ashe and put on a hell of a card and do this, wait till you see what I'm going to do. So that's what Eric Bischoff's feeling. So we shall see.
We shall see. And we'll go ahead and dig into this one. Our opening match, Brian, was Kenny Omega, the AEW heavyweight champion, taking on none other than Bryan Danielson. And they got right to the point on this one. My first thoughts were, thank God there wasn't a load of bullshit before the match started. There wasn't a 15-minute brawl outside the ring before the bell rings. There weren't 15 people coming from the locker rooms to fight just randomly in the crowd just to get on TV. They got right to the point. They got right into the ring, and then they milked the hell out of this stare down. It had to be a good 2 minutes before they even touched.
I mean, they let the crowd be, if you will, the fourth man in the ring. We'll count the ref as being the third, right? The crowd was the fourth man involved in this, and they just sat back and they let the crowd take their moment by those cheers, and they let that happen. That was pretty cool.
And the crowd was absolutely insane.
Well,
they were loud.
They packed 20,000 in there. You figure the last time that these two knuckleheads got into a ring together was in like Ring of Honor in a VFW hall in front of like 200 people, and they put on a hell of a match, and they got to do it in front of 20,000. So this was their quote WrestleMania moment, if you will.
Yeah, and there's going to be a theme from me during this whole episode, Brian, and that is these huge former WWE stars. They're doing what they came to do. They are bringing out the best. And some of these AEW stars that were a little struggling in some areas. So they're bringing out the best of them. And then they are also, between their selling and their smoothness, these guys that recently came over from WWE, they are making these AEW guys look absolutely fantastic. Not shitting on Omega in this particular instance, but with Bryan Danielson opposite him, this is the best I've seen Kenny Omega look.
How's that TikTok trending sound go? Get out of my sandwich. Get out of my head, Eric Todd. You're in my head. I was watching this last night. No. I was watching this last night, and I was like, you popped in my head because I'm going, Eric shits on Kenny. You didn't take somebody who's doing something amazing. You point out the flaws in the holes in the system, and if the things that if he fixed, he would be the guy that he claims to be, correct? Like, that's the idea that I get from you. Like, he has the raw potential. If he just took some outside, smoothing there, he would be, the all-around pro wrestler.
So the way I take Kenny Omega, I love the steak analogy of Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon sells the sizzle. He doesn't sell the steak. Kenny Omega isn't the prime cut of meat because his fundamentals are a little shaky. You'll see his happy feet in the ring because he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know what to do with his hands, so he's always pointing everywhere. He looks like trash when he hits the ropes. But he's not the prime cut of steak, but he is cooked absolutely fantastic by a world-class chef is the way he can put a sizzle on a not so fantastic cut of meat.
So I'm watching this match and I'm going, I can see how Kenny became the guy that everybody claims that he is, because if you put him with the right dancing partner, the sumbitch looks like he's been in dance class, you know what I'm saying? Like, he looks like this guy is putting on a show of shows in professional wrestling, but he's with the right guy, and he's listening in the ring. So he's letting Bryan Danielson call this match, I'm only assuming, because something drastic changed, right? We saw a different Kenny Omega. So he's letting Danielson call the match. He's following his lead. He's selling to Danielson. Daniel's working with his weakness, with Kenny's weaknesses. That's where Brian's working at, or whatever his name is now. I'm getting myself all tongue-tied. You know what I'm saying? It just worked so well. So something changed, and I'm thinking it's the fact that, he was letting Danielson lead the match. Or
Right.
Bryan Danielson.
And we've seen behind the scenes footage of Bryan Danielson teaching rookies how to get in and out of holds. The guy's a hell of a teacher. The guy's a hell of a leader, and he's extremely smooth. So even at the beginning, with Danielson leading this match with a ton of submission moves, a ton of technical wrestling, Kenny is just rolling right with it, getting out of those submissions, and it's like a well-oiled machine. And Danielson always put the finesse into making this match feel real with how much he was laying in those kicks and chops. They went for it during this match.
They said, they looked at each other backstage and said, let's go hot with chops tonight. And they went hot. And even the kicks, I'm sure they weren't kicking 110%. They weren't trying to put their boot through the back of their chest, but they were laying those kicks in. Like, you felt that it was real. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you watched it and went, these guys are putting on a show. Plus, the chops were 100%. There was nothing. I mean, that was their chest was hamburger meat by the time they were done.
Right. And Omega did his job. Props to him. He was playing a fantastic heel. The selling he was doing for Danielson was absolutely great. And the crowd was booing the hell out of Kenny Omega. And then it clicked in my head. With Bryan Danielson in the ring as the babyface, this crowd would have booed Orange Cassidy.
Yeah. They'd have booed anybody. They'd have booed Jesus. Daniel Bryan was in there. This was New York, 20,000 people. His first match in AEW, his first match in a long time in professional wrestling. The dream match of Kenny Omega. It is babyface, heel, no questions asked. The thing that popped in my head watching this was the confusing part. It's not really confusing, but Kenny was being booed so bad, but Adam, you looked confused for a second. Adam Cole, you threw me off. Adam Cole gets such the pop that it's insane that he's such the baby because everybody's so hot that he joined AEW, right? So that's just the funny thing to me is that he's booed so much being in the Bullet Club. And then Adam Cole is cheered and revered so much while being, again, in this elite Bullet Club, whatever you want to call it.
Right. And give me 1 second, Brian. I'm having technical difficulties here. My second monitor disconnected.
So go ahead and join us on all of our social media platforms, guys. Join us on YouTube, where we're streaming live currently at the moment. You can check us out on Facebook, and you can check us out at Instagram and on TikTok. All of that stuff. We're posting news and sharing videos. Once again, you can join us there. Join the KayFabe Smark on Facebook. There's a group and a page starting to kick off and go live on that. Currently streaming live to Facebook tonight. So feel free to jump on over to the KayFabe Smark. Like us on Facebook. We'll go live on there. You guys get notifications. There's a little chat there. There's a chat on YouTube. Looking at figuring out how to join up with Twitch. Might do some Twitch shows and keep things secret there and do some Smark After Dark. There's trying to figure out if we should go live on TikTok. If you guys think we should do some live TikToks, maybe some watch-alongs or something like that, Eric and I can put that together. And once again, all those social media platforms are open. And share the podcast with a wrestling friend. Give us a like. Give us a follow. Hit the share button. And let's talk some professional wrestling. Eric, are you back up and running, my friend?
I am almost there, and I am back.
All right. Welcome back to the show. This was a hell of a first opening match, and I thought that there was only really a couple. I was trying to figure out how they were going to get out of this. I didn't feel in my gut that they were going to put the belt on Bryan Danielson, his first night in the company, his first working night in the company, on a free show, Dynamite, the opening show, basically unannounced. I didn't feel that. So I'm like, well, what do they do? And so I was running through scenarios in my head. Are they going to have, is Kenny Omega going to do something dirty and get disqualified? Is the Elite going to get involved? Is somebody just going to get injured and claim they can't finish? Is it what's going to happen? And so these are all the things running through my head. Were you having these same thoughts watching this?
Yeah, precisely. I wasn't 100% sure at the beginning of the match of if this was for the belt or not. So I was kind of all over the place of how are they going to get out of this. And
I had that same thing in my head too. Was this not for the belt and I wasn't aware of it, and they're going to give Bryan Danielson the W and say, hey, I beat you in a non-title match? That was a way out as well. I wasn't positive. Again, I missed that if it was for the title or not. They weren't very clear on that, and that is an AEW faux pas.
yeah, that is a staple of AEW's not being 100% clear on stipulations such as that.
Correct.
But yeah, I think they chose the perfect way to get out of this. I noticed the match at some points was moving a little slow, even for me, and I'm an old school wrestling fan, and it seemed like they were trying to draw out to something, and precisely this thing ended up going Broadway. These guys ended in a draw and
I think
played it off perfectly.
I think it was perfect. I got the gut feeling that that's where they were going when you started to hear the timekeeper make some announcements. 1, 2 minutes, 5 minutes remaining, and you're going, oh, they made the 2 minutes. They're down, and then the commentator said it. They've got less than 1 minute left in this match, and they're gonna go the time limit. Okay, that's where they're going with this thing. They're going the time limit, and that makes sense. They had it right there to the end. It was that perfect ending where it looks like if they'd have just had one more minute, Danielson would have been able to wrap it up and bring it home, and it just didn't happen. The Elite didn't really get involved in the match. That they let these guys fight. It didn't get convoluted or anything. It was just these two fighting. The Elite gets involved at the end, but the match is over, and Bryan Danielson catches a super kick from the super click for his troubles.
Right, and these two played it off great as we approached the end too. You're approaching the ending, and the initial thought in your head is this thing's going all the way. It's going to be a draw. But they do pull you in because it's just reversal, penitent, submission. These two were, they appeared to be really fighting for an end to this match. But we do end up in a draw. After the bell rings, Danielson is millimeters away from getting Omega into the label lock. And then here comes the Elite. And Nick Jackson is dressed like a goddamn circus clown at this point. The multicolored star shirt and this whole shtick of the Young Bucks of just being goofballs who dress like clowns to get heat. The shit's getting old.
I think it's going to go away for one reason, and that name is Adam Cole. And I don't see AC dressing like an asshole. He's going to come out, he's going to rock his jeans, whatever, his own shirt, his leather jacket, that gimmick, his greasy, wet hair, and he's going to wear his Jordans or his Nikes or whatever, type of shoe that they're rocking that day in the sneakerhead game, right? That's all good. But the dressing like the asshole part, Adam Cole isn't going to roll like that. I don't feel that. So I think it's going to veer away from that and just go back to that too cool for school look. You know what I'm saying? Just Just have the fresh kicks and, whatever. Dress trendy, if you will. That's fine. Be that, but you don't have. I don't understand the Bermuda shorts up to your fucking crotch and everything else that they got going on.
Yeah, I could definitely go for that. The too cool for school thing, the being obnoxious, being overly cocky, that's classic heel shit that works. And the just dressing like a fucking idiot and obnoxious douchebag
A
to
frat
get
boy.
heat, it's just cheap. And it comes off as desperate, almost of like everybody loves us because we put on Cirque du Soleil every week and everyone cheers for our big moves. How do we make them hate us? Oh, we'll dress like assholes. It's cheap. It's easy. And I don't respect that. So hopefully Adam Cole coming over and he has experience in getting heat the legit way. Hopefully that spreads throughout the elite.
100%, because I'm not going to lie, I want me a Super Click shirt. I am all in. I want a Super Click shirt. That's it. As soon as Pro Wrestling Tees puts them up, I'm ordering one. I ordered my CM Punk shirt not too long ago, but God knows when that thing will be in. So we'll just hold our breath, and one day it'll be waiting for me. They didn't even. I had to order the one without the black collar because they were sold out of those. They have just an all white version. I had to jump down a standard shirt. So nonetheless, I want a Super Click shirt, but first those assholes gotta stop dressing like idiots.
Right. I don't need a multicolored Bermuda all elite shirt. That's not on my Christmas list. But this thing wraps up with Adam Cole kicking Bryan Danielson in the face, and then out comes the dinosaur click with Christian Cage, and they make the save, and it's the end of that segment. So we got 20 or 25 minutes of pure entertainment, pure wrestling, and then somebody just took a dump right on top of my ice cream sundae, but it's all right. I was almost done eating.
That's all right. It ended all right. They didn't get involved too much. It was right there. I liked in this match, too, when you went back how they talked about the reversals, the pin attempts, and the submission holds. They were never the actual finishing moves of either guy. They were sub-finishing moves, if you will. So I love that. Get out of the shoulder compactor or whatever they called the one move that Bryan did, and 76 knee triggers from Kenny Omega, and every other submission that Bryan Danielson can lock you up in. It is what it is. So I like that they got out of all that, but overall I was very impressed with this match, and it going the full 30 minutes I think was a great way to get out of it. I mean, that just works for TV for how many more weeks now? You can sell that match for like 5 more weeks.
Right. Just the idea of that rematch happening. That's going to keep the eyes on the TV screens. And we went from that humongous pop for that fantastic match to another humongous pop for a promo. And only one person can deliver a promo that's going to get that pop, Brian.
Mr. Personality himself, CM Punk.
Yeah, CM Punk makes his way to the ring, and this promo was 100% passion, and CM Punk is just, you can't say this enough times, nobody delivers a promo like him. You believe every word he says. And this is a guy who is referred to himself in WWE as a character. So, this is a role he's playing, but when he's on that TV screen, this is Phil Brooks. You believe every word he says.
100%. And I was cringing the entire time. I was wincing. I didn't want it to happen, and it didn't happen. I did not want Taz to come out and ruin it, because he would have jibber-jabbed it up and not made a lick of sense. It would have been all over the place. Punk would have been trying to keep it in order, and it would have been a jumbled mess. But it didn't happen. This was pure passion, pure CM Punk selling what he's supposed to do for you to watch the match. I don't know about you, but I'm interested to watch Rampage as he's going to fight Powerhouse Hobbs on Friday. He is there to draw eyes, and he's doing it. He's coming out on this show to tell you to watch that show. He's going to go out on that show and tell you to watch this show. And then he's going to go out on both shows and say, buy the pay-per-view. That's called the wrestling business.
He is doing his job 100%, and he is keeping you absolutely engaged. You follow his passion, and then he's just delivering constant contrast. I'm pissed off because of Team Taz jumping me. I'm pissed off they attempted to put me through a table, but I'm so happy to see you guys. And I can't stop smiling when I see you guys. But Team Taz pissed me off, but nobody's going to take me away from being happy about you guys. It keeps you constantly engaged, and there's nothing more to say about CM Punk's promos. They speak for themselves.
100%. I also feel that there's an underlying thread in this being woven that he is building up and becoming the megastar and taking all the accolades that he deserves, but CM Punk is a natural heel. He is going to shit on this audience sometime. Not this week, not in 2 weeks, but give it a year. And he's going to turn so fast on these guys and be a heel, just like he did in Ring of Honor. They're going to recreate what he did in Ring of Honor when he signed with WWE. Then he still won and retained the Ring of Honor title and ran with it for an entire 3 months and became corporate CM Punk and wore a suit to the ring and said Ring of Honor sucks. Something's going to happen because it'll be money, though.
I don't know if it was just my own wishful thinking, because I am 100% on board. I want CM Punk to be a heel. I want him to pick apart everything wrong with AEW and talk about how he is so much better. And there's only one person who can do it completely naturally, and that's CM Punk. And I almost felt little bits of heat radiating off of him. Just simple mannerisms. That's like, holy shit, is he turning? Could he possibly turn this early? But you're right. He's not going to turn anytime early. He's got to milk this thing, this babyface thing, and all these eyes on him for as long as he can, because that will just make it so much sweeter, Brian.
Oh,
it'll make it so much better when he flips the script on these motherfuckers and goes full heel.
Oh man. And hopefully and I have a great chunk in my heart. I believe utterly so strongly that he will do it right. He won't go heel and just be like, well, I'll wear Bermuda shorts and put a knee up and pierce my nose. Now I'm a heel. Like, that doesn't make you a bad guy, but he'll do it right. Eric, we are streaming live on our Facebook page, and Mr. Joe Slater that's watching us asks that if you ask your microphone in question and shake it, will it answer you? I believe he's saying your microphone looks like a magic 8-ball. Is that how you get all the answers for all of these questions and overrated, underrated, and the things that I ask you? Is that really a magic 8-ball you're speaking into?
It's a magic snowball, in fact, Joe Slater. Brought to you by Blue, but
anyways, I just saw that pop up on our feed.
The cat is out of the bag. All my answers are actually written on the other side of this motherfucker.
And he shakes it. Again, if you're listening to the audio version, guys, make sure you hop onto YouTube. Make sure you hop and join us on Facebook at the KayFabe Smark Podcast. Like our page, join the group, and you can watch the video versions. We go live on Thursday evenings. Usually it's a little earlier, but we had some technical difficulties. This is part 2. Part 1 you'll never hear because, well, it didn't record. So that is why, and here we are. So nonetheless, we'll continue on and keep talking about this Grand Slam AEW show.
And next on our card, we had a pure AEW match. No former WWE stars to be seen. We had Maxwell Jacob Friedman taking on the likes of Brian Pillman Jr.
This is all about the rub. Max, I'm going to guess, sees the next guy that they got to rub and bring up. They need some young talent. They need to start making guys look better, and why not take this opportunity for Brian Pillman Jr.? He's going to hop on it and get involved with Maxwell Jacob Friedman, MJF, from one of the top guys in the company.
And I am a 100% true believer that Brian Pillman Jr. isn't quite ready for TV yet. I think he needs a little more time behind the scenes, learning the craft. That's apparent by the way Pillman Jr. punches. and kicks and what have you. His strikes absolutely stink. But I buy the guy, and with MJF in the ring leading the dance, MJF was the guy in this one. He made
Right.
Pillman look like $1 million, and this match actually worked great. And it almost feels real between these two because MJF is such an amazing heel and a natural heel, and you can't help but like Pillman Jr. because of his dad and because of Dark Side of the Ring, and these two just gel naturally.
100%. They did a great job. Again, you said it. MJF was the ringleader. He was the ring general. He led this dance. All Pillman had to do was follow the lead. He didn't do too bad. There's some greenness to rub off the horns there, but he'll come along nicely if he keeps putting in the work and getting the rub and working with top guys like MJF. You can't do anything but get better.
Right, and MJF did exactly what he was going to do. There was no way he was going to lose this match, but he did his job. He made Pillman look great. MJF ends up getting the win with Salt of the Earth.
Yes, it did not do anything for Brian Pillman to lose this match. It did more for him to lose this match, I think, than win it, because he wouldn't be able to carry the momentum of the win, but he can carry the momentum of the loss. There's something to the loss.
It just makes him hate MJF that much more and want to go after him that much harder.
Well, because he's the uber babyface, right? Brian Pillman Jr. right now, and MJF is the real, heel. It's simple as that. There's no question. Natural born heel. And I feel too, if MJF is gonna give you the rub and get in there and rub elbows with you and put his name, put your name and his name on a card together, and you go out there and shit on the match and look like a real idiot, he's probably going to vote to not work with you anymore. So hopefully he sees something in Mr. Brian Pillman Jr. and can keep making him better. But yes, Salt of the Earth, MJF gets the W. Brian Pillman Jr. can continue on with his storyline, trying to avenge this loss.
Right, good match, and we go right to the back. We got Chris Jericho and Jake Hager cutting a promo with Alex Marvez, and I'm going to be honest with you, Brian. I've been tired of Alex Marvez since the minute I saw him, and I am tired of babyface Jericho, so I didn't listen to this promo. I just kind of was looking at my phone. Did he say anything significant?
You can bring your giant UFC or your mixed martial art fighters. You can bring whoever you want. You're a shithead, and sang the little song that they came up with last week and everything in between. But, it was what it was. It was just a promo selling you to watch the match. He was doing his job. Tune into Rampage.
Yeah, I'll already be tuned into Rampage to watch the CM Punk match. So, yeah, that will enter my eyeballs. Next on our card here, we got Cody Rhodes trying to get his revenge on the likes of Malachi Black.
There was a lot built up for this. They put this in the Cody Rhodes spot. Cody Rhodes loves that 9 o'clock hour.
He does. He loves it.
And so they went with it in that mid-card main event. I don't want to call it mid-card like they are middle card workers. That's not what I'm saying. It was literally the middle of the card.
Right. It's the top of the hour tune-in. Let's use Cody Rhodes to bring the eyeballs to the switching channels there.
And so I think that's what they were going with, and that's the gimmick and the name of the game, putting a big match right there. And Cody didn't look bad. He had some time off. He came back. Brandy came back. They had Brandy Rhodes out there. I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel about Brandy Rhodes always poking her head around. I think I'd rather see her or Arn Anderson, but I don't think we need both.
Right. And, well, first things first, Cody came out in a fucking cape, a 10-foot long cape, and he's dressed like a Walmart version of Evel Knievel. And that was just, I'm not digging this character that Cody Rhodes is playing. I don't understand this super patriotic, all-American, I don't know. I'm not buying it.
Yeah, I don't know. That part didn't. I'll be honest with you. I missed that part. I was listening to it. I had my earbuds in, and I was doing something else at the same time. I actually wasn't even in the room. I was hearing it though, and they were announcing him, and then I came back in. So I missed the entrance. But Cody's
he's wearing a cape. Enough said.
Cody's very pomp and circumstance. He's very he's got to have fireworks, and he has to beat up a chair and make it explode because it looked like Triple H's chair, and yada yada yada. So. That being written, whatever it is. So, but this match...
Yeah, that's just Cody.
That's just Cody. So this match was... It's just always weird to me. They have second time they've done this with Cody that I can just pick apart, right? Brody Lee squashes him in 8 seconds, wins the belt, dominates him. Cody disappears for a while, comes back, and then all of a sudden can fight him and then can come close and win. And it was the same thing. He fights Malachi Black, catches a kick to the head, disappears in a squash match, essentially. Malachi Black annihilates his entire family, and here we are. Back. Cody Rhodes is back, and now all of a sudden he can hang with him again. But they didn't even give us any, training vignettes. At least, when guys would disappear, it'd be in WWE, old school style, if you will. You would get these vignettes of them, while I was gone, I was rehabbing this, and I started training with some boxing technique, and I was learning Muay Thai kicks and, whatever. He was like, nah, we went and had a kid. I put on a little weight. Cody looked a little fluffy. He didn't look fat by any means, but he wasn't as lean as he was the last time we saw him. It just, he just disappeared, went and lived a life, created a reality show, taped another season of the Go Big Show, and here we are. I'll come back to wrestling, I guess.
Yeah, and Cody's very open about that. Any chance he gets to advertise his non-wrestling ventures, he will put it out there. So it was very open, very widely known that he didn't contemplate retiring. He just had other shit to do. But the main thing that bothered me about this match, you stated it before, it was Brandy Rhodes. She's got to stick her snoot into everything and get involved in everything, and it drives me fucking nuts. Brandy makes her appearance, almost gets her own separate entrance from Cody. She comes in after him. Malachi Black at one point is being cocky, sits down crisscross applesauce in the middle of the ring. And lo and behold, Brandy gets in the ring, sits down right across from him, cross-legged, flips him off, gives him the fuck you, and you can clearly see that in the camera, and just has to be involved in everything, and it's unnatural, and it just waters down the match to what I thought was a good match. But her involvement just soured it for me.
Her involvement soured it for you. I'm going to be honest with you. Arn Anderson's involvement soured it for me, but I think we're going to get to that in just moments here.
We will get to that in just a moment. And you were speaking about Cody being able to hang with Malachi Black, and I thought they played that pretty well with Cody constantly going after Malachi Black's leg.
Yes.
To disable that monster Muay Thai kick to the dome piece that'll put your lights out. Cody constantly working the leg, Malachi not being able to throw that coveted kick. And now, Brian, we will get to Arn Anderson, and this was hilarious. It was awkward, and I had to hang my head in shame watching this whole thing unfold.
Yeah, so first off, Cody has in some type of submission, was it? Or a pin attempt? Had Malachi, him being Malachi, pronouns, pal.
Yeah, I'm not sure what was exactly going on because I was watching Arn on the
there was some type of pin attempt or a submission hold, and he was so excited that he jumps up on the ring apron, and he's like, "What happened? Did Cody win?" And in the moment, and then he's up, and then they're kind of Malachi and Cody are having their little scuffle back and forth, and then Cody literally points over here. Cody would, Arn would be to his left, and he points at him to come in front of him on the ring. And
right.
Then so now Arn Anderson, 69 years old, on a ring apron, he doesn't get down and come around for maybe what could be an interference of some kind, right? He's going to bring Malachi over there. Arn's going to give him a knuckle sandwich. whatever it was. He tries to jump around the corner, staying on there. His gut's too big these days. I am no physical specimen here, but, Arn is way out of shape. His knees don't work. His shoulders don't work. He couldn't make the transition. The son of a bitch falls off the apron. Boom, like
Right.
Humpty Dumpty, he's down.
Trying to maneuver around the ring post. Arn loses his balance or slips or what have you, but falls right off the ring apron. And that's where the chuckling began, because Cody and Malachi should have just moved on beyond that.
This is where AEW shits the bed on a constant.
Improvisation. They can't do it.
100%. They cannot transfer over and say, shit, we got to do something different, call an audible. The plays move to this now instead of that. But instead, they sloppily do something. And
while
then
we wait for Arn Anderson
to get to his spot. There's an X that Arn Anderson has to stand on. And Arn gets back up to fall down again?
Right. That's where I was just dumbfounded, because we waited an awkwardly amount of time for Arn Anderson to get back on his mark on the ring apron, just so Cody could accidentally run into him and knock him off the ring apron, and Arn and Cody can feign anger that the spot got botched. And the whole thing was just completely unnecessary for the outcome of this match. They definitely could have just moved right past the spot when Arn fell.
But Cody goes back out after he knocks him down. He dumps Malachi out the other side, goes out of the ring, goes down there to check on Arn. Cody does, and then Arn gives him like the two-handed chop to the chest and says, "Don't worry about me. Take care of your guy." Okay, that's fine. That's fine, because that's always been something that Arn's been on, right? Don't worry about the outside. Don't worry about your wife. Don't worry about me. Worry about your match. Don't do push-ups in the ring. Worry about your guy. So, with that being said, why couldn't they have just done that the first time he fell?
Again.
Why didn't he just grab Malachi and go, "You're going outside. I'm going to do my spot with Arn." And he would have dumped him out, went over there. He said, "Don't worry about me. Get your guy." They could have, and it would have all still worked, because it would have looked like Arn was trying to get involved. Arn's old and feeble, and he fell. But now it looked like he botched the spot for a botched spot work.
Right. That's it. That's what I'm saying. They could have just moved right past that spot, because the whole intention was for Arn to fall off the apron and for Cody to check on him. Arn already fell off the apron. You don't got to fall off it again just because Cody didn't hit you.
No, you could have just fell and been like, "Hey, my friend who's old fell. Let me go look at him."
He's just so old.
So it was nonsense. It was goofy. And, just kind of whatever. So I thought that kind of sucked, obviously.
Right. And then we get in another weird, awkward spot where Cody and Malachi are kind of going at it there. And Cody is supposed to accidentally hit the ref, I'm assuming, or he's so fired up he hits him on purpose. I don't know. It just looked awkward when Cody hit the ref. The ref's all of a sudden distracted just enough for Malachi Black to spit the black mist right in Cody's face.
Right
in
Cody's chin.
And put him in the small package or what have you to get the 1, 2, 3, a stolen victory whatsoever.
Yeah. So we go from their first encounter to being a squash match to catching a kick to the side of the head to the dome piece to now that same guy has to spit in his face and steal it with a small package. It's just, is Malachi going to be the guy, or is he going to be the guy to steal wins, right? He was originally the guy that was on a warpath, killing everybody they put in front of him. Now, mind you, they had put 3 scrubs in front of him and an old man. But nonetheless, that's what happened. So we shall.
Yep. And the only reason I can bite on this at all is Malachi's selling. Malachi Black selling that leg 100% to a T.
He did.
even scooting his ass back up the ramp because his leg was so injured.
The
So
fact
that's where you can bite on it a little bit.
the fact that they picked a body part to work on at all and stuck with it, and that it continued to hurt the whole time. Hey,
Right,
I
and-
applaud you.
And Cody's a former WWE guy, and he knows what he's doing too. But this was another example. I told you it's going to be the theme of the show. The recent professionals, highly regarded professionals that came over from WWE, in this circumstance, polishing a turd and Malachi selling did what it could to make the best out of this
Yeah.
odd match.
Odd. If they would have just skipped a few pieces, you would have remembered a pretty good match. The finish was sloppy, and the Arn Anderson thing was not needed. The Brandy Rhodes thing, I can give or take, but the Arn Anderson and the sloppy finish were weird. I didn't care for those two things. But then you add the Brandy Rhodes thing, and now the three of them suck together. So what was the next part?
Next part was a promo for the Sami Gavarro versus Miro match for the TNT title. And this one worries me, Brian, because I genuinely don't know which way this is going to go. I personally think Miro needs to hold this belt for a very long time and continue to dominate so that he can be amongst the top heels, if not the top heel in the company eventually. But Tony Khan has such a hard-on for Sami Guevara, and Sami Guevara is incredibly talented. I could definitely see this going either way, either letting Miro continue his reign of terror or putting the belt on Sami Guevara because he's such a goddamn good babyface.
I don't think he'll get the belt on him. Sami is not going to lose anything by losing the match, and they need to rebuild Miro. So I think they're still in the rebuilding phase, and they're going to build him up until, like, I think they have a monster planned to take the title. I think I think there's something. I may have just
a monster among men.
A monster among men, a fiend monster. I'm not sure what type of monster under your bed might come out of the woodwork, but I think somebody along those lines is going to have to be the one to stop him. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. Somebody who is as big as the steak that Miro eats for lunch isn't going to be the one to squash him unless the entire inner circle gets involved, and they haven't worked that into any type of storylines, and then it would seem forced and awkward.
Right, and that's logical booking right there, but you got to see what we've seen booked in the past where size almost doesn't matter sometimes. And Sami Guevara, I could see him switching the title, and it would be bad booking, and I think it would hurt Miro tremendously to lose to such a small opponent. But yeah, I'm hoping it goes the way you say. Miro's got to continue this absolute reign of terror that he's on.
They need a rebuild, so this is a good reboot, and bring him back and start over again. And we continue on with this Dynamite Grand Slam episode.
We continue on with FTR. Thank God they're getting on TV a little more often. And they are taking on Darby Allin and Sting. In this match, Brian, I knew it from the minute they were making the entrances, and this turned out exactly the way I anticipated. It just these two teams being in a match together, it's like, oh, look, another L for FTR. Unfortunately, it seems I know the Young Bucks are in charge of the tag team division, and I know the Young Bucks have a chip on their shoulder that people still think FTR is better than them. But FTR is just being used to make other teams look good, and they just continuously keep taking losses, and it's just rotten. It is rotten booking, in my opinion.
First off, let's talk about that FTR drip. I mean, they came out looking like Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, NWO, Black and White Outsiders. I mean, that was money right there for me. They sold me already, but so I just had to get that out. They put Sting in a match. I think it's in his contract that he has to look good.
Right. FTR had no business being in the ring with Darby Allin and Sting because there's no other way this thing's gonna turn out. There's no way Darby Allin and Sting are gonna lose, let alone to FTR.
Well, there's no way Sting and Darby Allin need to be a tag team because there's no way they're going to be the tag team champions.
Good point.
So why have this? They could have separated them, and they could have said this is going to be, Dax and Darby, whatever. Because what is it? What is the tag team? What does that get them? What does FTR beating these two knuckleheads get them? They didn't, but what does it get them? Same thing it gets them for losing to them. You were in a match with them.
Right. FTR needs some momentum, though. They need some wins.
I know, but I think they need the right wins. I think this is Darby Allin and the popcorn salesman. It was the equivalent to Darby Allin and Sting. You beat him at the end of the day. It don't matter. You're not getting anywhere. They're not in a tag team to be in the tag team division to move you up to get a title shot.
Yeah, precisely. A win over these guys would have only counted in the record books. It would have been a W.
Right.
It wouldn't have meant a damn thing. But that being said, FTR did their job. They did what they were paid to do. They made a legit senior citizen and a legit 140-pound man look like $1 million. FTR selling, their smoothness, their bumping, their desperation that they can exude, their ability to bully at one point and chicken shit at another, and to cheat but not succeed in cheating. It made Darby Allin and Sting look absolutely fantastic. Darby Allin is a very talented guy. Sting he still looks great for his age, but FTR really moved him up a notch as far as how they looked in that ring.
Yeah. This was I was going to say, when you said they made a senior citizen and 140-pound, I was going to say they made a grandson and his grandfather look really good. But yeah, FTR can do the work. So they're going to do the work, whether it's good for the other team or not. And, in this point, it wasn't the work that they had to put in wasn't good for FTR, but they still did the work.
They did the work. At one point, both of them, Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler, they're in the ring with Sting, and this is near the beginning of the match, Brian, so this wasn't a comeback moment. This wasn't a Hulk up moment. This is near the beginning of the match, and FTR is just continuously feeding Sting and letting Sting do what he can with his limited abilities. And like I said, they're selling, their smoothness, how they work together. They made Sting look dominant, and he is in his mid-60s.
Yeah. I wasn't excited for Sting to come back. It wasn't a big deal for me. I was, a Sting guy back when I was a kid, the blonde hair bleach Sting, even the crow Sting and all that stuff. It was cool, but he Sting. He can pop around. I didn't think he was going to be involved like he is, and that's the part that weirds me out of how he's involved. So this match kind of sucked for me. I like FTR. I love their drip they had on. Their gear was on point, and hopefully they can get something rolling. At least they're making TV now.
Right. And just to touch on what you said with Sting, I didn't think he would be wrestling legit matches. I thought he was going to be more of the cinematic match type guy. But there's only a few things you can do with a Sting. You can either do what they did one of the last times he wrestled, just have him brawl outside the ring, because anyone can do that. Or you have to put him in the ring with extremely talented artists that can make him look good.
Sure.
So when Sting gets in the ring, his options for opponents are pretty limited. So I guess it would almost be an honor for FTR to do the job for Sting, because they're one of the very few teams that can make Sting look like $1 million. But they definitely paid for it by having Dax just tap out clean in the middle of the ring to the Scorpion Deathlock.
Yeah. I I'm with you. The Sting needs to do something else. I don't know what it is, but it's definitely not this. And if it is this, it needs to be more of a reason for this and something that they're going to continue on, not these random, like he's in a tag team with Darby Allin. He's his manager. He's not going to come out to this match because he can do it on his own. Why do you guys hang out? What do you guys talk about? But what was the next match on this card?
The next match was our main event for the AEW Women's Championship. Your number one contender, because she won the Casino Battle Royale, that would be Ruby Soho versus Britt Baker, the AEW Women's champion, and she is flanked by Jamie Hayter and Rebel, not Reba.
Ruby Soho. Ruby Soho. So this was the big Ruby Soho, not debut match. She had fought one other, Chris Statlander or some nonsense, or Jamie Hayter.
Yeah, she fought Jamie Hayter a couple weeks ago.
Statlander got involved at the end. That's what it was. Yeah. Nonetheless, here we are, the show, Ruby Soho, back in New York. You know, I know New York isn't owned by WWE and WWE doesn't own New York, but, you know, let's be honest. When you think New York, what do you think?
They're synonymous. Even in the territory days, WWE was just called New York.
I'm going to New York. Them getting the call. I got the call to go to New York. Or, you know, and WCW was just going down south.
Right.
So, they're in New York. Ruby Soho, the name's got to come from Soho, New York, you know, south of Houston Street. So, you know, you got the whole New York thing going on here. Here we are, Ruby Soho, New York, coming back to give WWE the big, I can do it, and you know, I hope it's not the big fuck you. I don't think that's good for business, but I think you know, this is what you left. This is, you know, when a girl dumps you and you go out and become a better person and you go, this is what you left behind is, you know, I'm better than I was and better than I'm going to be, or better than I was and all that jazz. So I hope that's more, this is what it's about, and that's what it seems to be about. These two got in the ring and put on a match. You know, the AEW women's division is not an amazing division. We can all admit this correctly.
Right. It is not top tier female talent at the moment.
But they're starting to stack a few around and put on some matches. And they're giving these guys main events in, you know, big events, big shows. And that's putting the pressure on. And I think they're going to, you know, that under pressure, you know, make a diamond, right? We'll see if these guys can hang and handle the pressure.
Yeah, maybe that was the goal in this, to put the pressure on these guys for a main event match. But I personally think this could have been switched with the Kenny Omega match, and I think it would have made a ton more sense.
That was all straight up grabbing eyes. Let's see what AEW. Oh my God, it's Kenny and Brian Danielson. I can't turn this show off. They wanted the big hook. They wanted a big hook with big bait to catch you at 8 o'clock for those good primetime viewing hours. You know, there's probably a certain amount of time that counts as viewers, and if they can get you in the first 20 minutes, it counts, and they gave you a 30-minute Broadway for the match of a lifetime. So they were drawing in those numbers. That's all it was. That was a gimmick.
Yeah, and it definitely worked, and it did its job, but this wasn't a main event in my eyes. Now, props to Britt Baker. She has come a long way, and she is a very talented performer now. But Ruby Soho, again, following the theme of tonight, that former WWE professional, that polished product, came in and made Britt Baker look better than she is. But that being said, this was pretty much, except for a few moves here and there. There was a neck breaker onto the floor that looked pretty good from Britt Baker. Overall, this was a typical women's match where nothing's extremely impressive. Nothing is, there's no oohs and ahs moments of, oh my God, they're really hurting each other, because it's just, to be honest, the strength isn't there to pull off, extremely physical moves. But for being a typical women's match, this was pretty good, and it was nice to see Ruby Soho get the spotlight on her.
Yeah, Brit is a great sizzle. You can sell the sizzle. It's not all about the steak. She's got the look. She can talk, and her wrestling's coming along. You know, you give her the look as a 9, a 10. You give her attitude and the way she carries herself, a good 8 and 9, 7, 8, and then her wrestling, a solid 6 or 7. And there you go. She's come a long way. Her wrestling was garbage, and she's, but then the best, like you said, the best things that happened to her was she broke her knee and broke her nose.
And she got to talk.
She got to talk, and you got to understand that character. So these two went out. They did what they did. Is it something that, stuck in my head and you just remember every second about it? I'm going to be honest with you. No, that ain't the answer. But they did go out and put on that match, and they're going to start to bring that was women's division together. These two, I can watch these guys, though. Does it need to be the main event? Probably not. Does it need to be somewhere on the card? 100%. It doesn't need to be that down match either. That's old school women's match. That was the real high match, the women's match, the main event, right? It doesn't need to be that. This could be a good 9 o'clock spot.
Yeah. I think this would have been a good match just in a different spot. And I don't know. I'm not a booker myself, Brian, but I felt
I am.
You're pretty good at pulling bookings out of your ass here, but this was another one where Ruby's new, Ruby's hot. Ruby just came from New York, the big company. You don't necessarily want her to lose, but you can't pull that title off Britt Baker. And I felt the way they booked it to appease everybody was a little lazy with Rebel and Jamie Hayter out there. You expect them to get involved. They get involved constantly in Britt Baker's matches, and that's how they ended this one. Ruby can't lose clean to Britt Baker because she's so new and so hot. So lo and behold, Jamie Hayter gets involved, Rebel gets involved, and Ruby ends up tapping out to the lockjaw.
Yeah. The lockjaw tease with the glove needs to be done more closer to when she's going to actually do it. She puts it on so early that it gets hard to remember that she put that glove on, right? That's the Hulk up moment. Imagine if Hulk would Hulk up and then get beat up again for 20 minutes, and then you're like, oh yeah, wait, I forgot he hulked up, and then he boots you in the face. Brit's good. It's just you just got to get the timing down and get everybody involved. We got somebody join us in our YouTube chat just saying DMD. That was D Star. What up, D Star? DMD representing that Britt Baker game. Don't think I'm mocking Brit by saying that she's not all that. Brit's there. Brit's the face of this. If the AEW's women division has a chance, this is it. This is it. So, and then Ruby Soho is the other it. And then if they can get some other it's going, you got something to watch. So, yeah, Brit, I'm all about Brit and Miss Britt Baker, DMD. I'm going to go down to Florida and get my teeth cleaned.
Yeah, I looked up her office. It's all legit in Orlando. You can go get your teeth scraped up by Britt Baker, DMD. But overall, I feel hopefully AEW can figure this whole booking thing and try to book a little ahead. I feel they're kind of going about it flying by the seat of their pants, where they're putting on huge shows like this. Like I said earlier, this was a fantastic card, but you could have built up a Britt Baker and a Ruby Soho for a pay-per-view. And you could have did the same for Bryan Danielson and Kenny Omega.
Let's be honest. This whole free show should have paid $50 for, because this is better than anything we've paid $50 for to watch from AEW.
Right. So at times AEW seems to blow their load on free shows, and what are we going to build up to from here?
Yeah. What do you do at the
pay-per-view? If you don't continue on with Ruby Soho and Britt Baker, who's Britt Baker going to fight at a pay-per-view that's going to be a better match than Ruby Soho? Same thing with Kenny Omega and Daniel Bryan.
At least that ended in a draw, and you can drag that out. They can go again. Now
They
you're
can
gonna
keep that one going for sure.
You can push that into an Iron Man match. Go an hour and see who can get the most pins. You can go old school with that. So I think there's some options to go there. They came hot with this one. They were in New York, 20,000 people. They had to really put a fucking show on, and they did. But again, AEW, can you do this again? Can you run? You don't have to do it again next week. You don't have to do 20,000 people and put on a pay-per-view caliber card. But can you run off this momentum until the next time? That's the question.
Can you keep your viewers right around that 1 million viewer mark until your next pay-per-view? That's the thing. Can they keep this hotness flowing?
Can they keep it hot? We have another question popping. We have a question popping in from our buddy D-Star there in the YouTube chat. He states, who do you reckon has a bigger future, Bianca Bel-Air or Britt Baker?
I'm going to go with Britt Baker on this one. I think it's going to be – it sounds pretty shitty, but I think Bianca Belair's 15 minutes are ticking down there.
She's at 14:57. I think Britt – I'm going to pick Britt, too, to be the one because I think she's got nowhere to go but up. There's already – she started as who's Britt Baker. This company started 2 years ago and who's Britt Baker. Now, don't get me wrong. 2 years ago, I didn't know who Bianca Belair was either. But Britt took 2 years to get that championship, and while talking in a wheelchair and building this character and creating who she is, where Bianca came out of nowhere from NXT, popped up. She was in NXT. Then she was a manager for the fucking Soul Preachers or whatever they call themselves. We were her husbands on the team. Those two guys, the Street Profits, the Soul Preachers, the Street Profits, and she's like a manager for them. And then all of a sudden she's in the title. She's a women's wrestler. Then she's in the title shot. Then she wins it, but then she gets squashed at SummerSlam in 3 seconds. So I think, again, you're right. I think she's on 14:58. I think we just lost another minute on my explanation of Bianca Belair's time ticking down. Unless something magic happens that I don't see coming. But I see Britt. I see Britt with more room to go.
Yeah, Britt's there already on the sizzle, and she's working on the steak. Bianca Belair has the steak down pat, but her sizzle's cooling down. I'm not really engaged when she's on the mic or if she's cutting a promo or her trying to, build up heat with someone else. I'm just not buying it with Bianca Belair.
Simple as that. D-Star, we love the questions. Make sure you come back and hang out with us. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit the thumbs up button. Hang out. Join us on Facebook. You guys want to get in and join the questions like our buddy D-Star over here on YouTube? Come on in. Thursdays we do this live, so feel free to jump in and hang out and ask us some questions, and I'll tell you what I think. Doesn't mean they're right. I'm just going to give you my answer. So we got anything left in this show to talk about, Mr. Eric Todd?
No, that's a wrap on this show. I think that's about it for this week.
I think that wraps us up. Make sure, again, we will go over it again. Social media platforms, YouTube, the KayFabe Smark, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, the KayFabe Smark. Join, like, subscribe, hit the like button, share it, offer it to a friend, the audio version. We do the live stream here on YouTube. We also streaming it over on Facebook in our on our page there. So like that, hit the thumbs up. Also maybe looking at Twitch and maybe some live streams on TikTok in the future. But in the meantime and in between time, hang out with us here on the KayFabe Smark. Watch for our posts, and let's talk some professional wrestling. Eric Todd, what do you got for us?
All I got left for the show is a good old hooty hoo. We out the gates.